Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Jazakallah khair for joining us today. So, welcome to Muslim Minds COVID-19, a series of Ramadan webinars by Inspirited Minds. And the intention behind these webinars is to revive prophetic traditions of coping during hardships and discover tools and resources from the Quran and Sunnah to empower us to manage our mental health. We pray that those of you who are with us today are safe and your families are safe, and we hope that you'll be able to revive, discover and empower with us. And to all those who have been affected by COVID-19, we're sincerely praying that Allah makes it easy for you, and whoever is being affected is granted shifa and a really quick recovery, inshallah. So this is our third webinar and we're still learning the ropes a little bit. So if you haven't already, please fill in the questionnaire. We've had some really great feedback and we're trying to implement this like as much as possible. So even if we don't manage to implement all the feedback right now, we will definitely 100% do it for next time for sure. Your opinion is so valuable to us, so please do fill it out. So before we begin, a few ground rules. We request everyone keep their mics on mute and switch off their videos apart from the speakers. The chat box is also being monitored. So if you feel like anyone is being inappropriate or being a bit hostile or anything like that, you will be kicked out. So let's keep this a safe space for everyone, inshallah. So I'll take you guys through the agenda for today, inshallah. So I'll be talking about coping for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then it will be Fathima, followed by Heretic. And then we'll talk about, so I have 2 really great opportunities for you guys today. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit after Heretic. And then we'll have our Q&A. So please do not leave until the Q&A is over. You guys will miss out, inshallah. Every week we always have people ducking out. And it's really, really important you don't, and you guys make the most of this time that we have. So please do not leave until the Q&A is over. Just a bit more information about the Q&A. If you have questions during this session, feel free to send these over into the chat box or send them privately if you don't want to send them publicly to Inspirited Minds brackets Sadia. She is the only one monitoring the chat, so please don't send your questions to anyone else because we're not monitoring the chat. Only send them to Inspirited Minds brackets Sadia, or you can mention them in the public chat, inshallah. So please do get that in. Also, I wanted to mention on that note, I guess, is some things that might come up in today's webinar may be sensitive and a bit overwhelming, considering that this is like 2 very personal stories and their take on mental health. So if you do need to take a break or need to speak with somebody, you can message any of the Inspirited Minds team and we can offer you support, inshallah. So to begin, if you guys haven't bored of my voice already, I'm going to speak for just a couple more minutes, inshallah. So to begin, I'm going to ask you guys 3 questions throughout this segment of me speaking. So you guys need to be clocked on, okay? I want you guys to be paying attention, inshallah, because I'm going to test you, I promise you. So one of the first questions I'm going to ask you is, I want to know what you guys think is a coping strategy. So type in the box what you think a coping strategy is. I'm going to repeat that. So what you guys think a coping strategy is, inshallah. So while I wait for your answers, I'm going to define what coping is. And this is what the internet says and, what all the books and academia says, basically. So coping is defined as what people do to try to minimize stress and minimize stress or face and deal with negative situations or responsibilities and problems or difficulties in a successful or calm manner. So that is the definition, like the official definition of coping. And I'm saying it in quotation marks because it will make sense a little bit later. So some people have said that it's something you do to help you cope with a situation. Yeah, it is. It's a way to deal with adversity in a healthy way. Good. Learning to breathe properly. Yep, that is a coping strategy. Coping is having tools, I think that's supposed to say tools and techniques to support you through trials. It's a way to get you through a difficult situation. It can be unhealthy and healthy, really good. That's a really important distinction to make. And we'll be talking a little bit about that later. Developing your resilience, that's an amazing buzzword, resilience. To step back and assess expectations, sleeping and eating well, yeah. So they're all really, really good, mashallah. So my next question is why are why are having coping skills so important? So why are having the coping skills that you've just mentioned, why are they so important to have? So let me know, but I'm going to read out the definition, but I want to know what you think is important. So coping skills are important because they increase resilience, like someone said. They enable us to bounce back, essentially. Coping skills teach us how to deal with negative emotions and situations in a healthy and effective manner. Not only does it teach us resilience, but also how to manage the after effects. So for example, you know, when you're in an argument or, you know, something like really like out of the blue has happened. So I know this is like the case for me. So I've been in an argument or, you know, something negative has happened, and afterwards I'm just like, oh, why didn't I say this? Or this should have happened, or oh my god, I should have reacted like this. This would have been better. And I'm left ruminating about it for so long, and my mind just fills up with, you know, should haves and what ifs and all of that sort of stuff comes to mind. But having those coping skills in place are what help us to deal with this as well. Essentially, they sort of act like a flush so that we can hopefully move on from whatever has happened. So some of you have said that coping skills are important to have because they empower you. We can keep going and not fall into despair. Yep. Survival, absolutely. We can help ourselves overcome issues. Yep. Using the mantra, those who matter don't mind and those that mind don't matter. That's really nice, actually. I haven't heard that before. Those who matter don't mind and those that mind don't matter. Coping skills are important for when things get hectic, overwhelming in life. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to know, this is my third question, I want to know what your coping skills are. So what your coping skills are, and if you have them, and if you don't, that's fine too. Like, I'm not saying you have to have a coping skill right now. And essentially that's one of the reasons why we're here, is speaking about coping mechanisms. And hopefully, inshallah, you'll get some ideas to implement. So it's really important that coping skills are 3 things. So number one, coping skills are really important. But, coping skills should be halal. Firstly, they should always be halal, as in they shouldn't involve things that are deemed prohibited in Islam. So for example, substance misuse. A lot of people do turn to drugs, and at the moment, if you do, that's fine, inshallah. We're not saying that you need to drastically change overnight, but we are saying that in future your coping mechanism should be halal, and I'll go into why it's really important. And secondly, they should be as healthy as possible. And I don't mean as in exercise. Of course, exercise is a good coping mechanism, but they should be healthy mentally and spiritually as well as physically. This all makes sense a little bit. So coping mechanism should be halal and healthy. And thirdly, they should be sustainable. What do you guys think of when I say sustainable? I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. So whilst I wait for you guys to answer why coping skills should be sustainable, I'm going to read out what are some of people's coping skills. So somebody has said taking a walk and being in nature, finding activities to relax the mind, like gardening, getting hands in the soil connects me to nature. Art therapy also helps, that's really nice. Skills I have adapted is to take time out for myself and take care of myself with pampering myself, as well as talking through my issues with sympathetic people. That's really nice. Keeping busy. Focus on the important part of one's life to ensure that you're engaged in positive activity. Playing sessions with my cats, that's the best one. That's the best coping mechanism you could possibly have. Anything involved with cats is the one. Praying, yeah, amazing. Running on the treadmill. Some people are saying writing, deep breathing, stretching, and salah. This brother said he used to be an addict, but he found his way to Islam, alhamdulillah. So I know about unhealthy coping mechanisms. Jazakallah khair for sharing that, brother. That's amazing. May Allah keep you steadfast and reward you for your efforts. So in terms of sustainability, someone has said that every coping skill should be lasting and natural. That is essentially it. So The reason why a coping mechanism should be sustainable is, although human beings are social beings and it's nice to rely on others, if the only way you cope, so I'm not saying that your coping mechanism should not include other people, but if the only cope mechanism you have is to talk to others and be with others, then you could leave yourself open to being let down or not coping at all, or moving forward at all. Actually, there are so many coping mechanisms out there, like I've just mentioned. So but I guess what I'm trying to say is, essentially, you can make anything into a coping strategy as long as it works for you. And turning something like every day, something like a daily activity, into a coping strategy is essentially creating coping skills. So I'm going to take you through the purpose of having coping strategy. So coping strategies tend to fall under 5 categories. So number 1 is releasing pent-up emotions. Number 2 is distracting yourself. Number 3 is managing hostile feelings. Number 4 is reflecting on an emotion or situation. And number 5 is relaxation. So personally, I would advise having specific coping strategies to fall back on for each of those reasons. So not only will this help you identify and be aware of your emotions. So for example, something negative has happened and you're like, okay, I think I need to release pent-up emotions. This is what I've outlined for myself to do. So it will enable you to identify your emotions, and also it will enable you to quickly respond instead of wondering what you need to do. So for example, before I had like a list of things that I can do to help myself in times of like hardship or negative emotions or situations, I would often be sitting there thinking, okay, do I need to take a walk, or should I take a nap, or should I read Quran, or do I just need to be by myself? So actually having these things in place could lead you to, I guess, coping quicker and better, inshallah. Secondly, Allah should be at the center of all of this. So this goes back to the couple of points I made earlier about it being halal and sustainable. So Allah should be at the center of everything. So releasing your emotions, for example, because this can cause distractions in your ibadah, for example. Or Allah encourages us not to be angry. One of the purposes is managing hostile feelings. So we should manage our hostile feelings because Allah has told us to preserve life, which includes preserving our mental health. Everything we do to cope should primarily be for the sake of Allah, and by default, it will serve us anyway. So everything we do to cope should primarily be for the sake of Allah, and by default, by serving Allah, it will serve us anyway. Finally, prevention is better than treatment. At Inspirited Minds, this is something that we're huge advocates for, and we cannot say enough that prevention is better than treatment. Coping strategies should be integrated into our daily lives so that we can respond to situations without them escalating and us needing to cope afterwards, if that makes sense. If we train ourselves so that our reflexes or our natural response is one with a sound mind and rationality, then we already have the situation at hand, if that makes sense, inshallah. So I'm going to list some coping or management strategies, but this is, by no means an exhaustive list, and we encourage you to actually go away and come up with your own, inshallah. So for number 1 is exercise. We've got reading, things that Islam already tells us to do: eating a healthy and balanced diet, shifting your focus to meaningful things, like taking, one thing I've personally learned this Ramadan is taking a specific time out every day to reflect on Allah and who He is and what He expects from us, and all of that sort of stuff has actually, been really good for my well-being, and it's motivating me throughout the day. I don't know how else to explain it apart from that is beneficial, and at least just give it a go. So reflecting on Allah's favors, gratitude is like a huge huge one. There's so much research about it, how it can help anxiety and depression. And finally, like keeping in emotions or daily insights, like journal or like a list. You can even make notes on your phone. Maintaining a routine is really, really important. Sleeping well, getting a nap in the day, sound therapy as well. So that's a list that we've just quickly put together, but we encourage you, really, really encourage you to go away and think of your own. So Jazakallah khair for listening to me. I've been going on a lot and I'm thirsty like there's no tomorrow. But I would now like to introduce our first speaker, inshallah, Fathima Hameed. Fathima is an Irish Indian currently living in the UK with a background in biological sciences. She has been on the road to recovery since 2017, mashallah, and after undergoing a period of mental health difficulties, she overcomes the challenges with her mental health by incorporating creativity and positivity in her recovery. Today, she will be telling us a little bit about her story and the role creativity has played in her life so far. So I'm going to pass it over to her, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Fatima.
Thanks, Inha. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, inshallah.
Okay, that's all that matters. So today I'm just gonna give like not a quick recaps because most of you are probably new. Just wanted to say, like, I am really nervous. I don't really do this much. This is literally my second mental health kind of talk, and I've never done a webinar. I hate cameras, etc. So just putting that out there. So be easy on me, and inshallah we can start. So Bismillah. So my mental health. Thanks, guys. I'm sorry, I just saw one of your comments, but yeah. So my mental health struggles kind of started in 2015. So it was basically, it wasn't like your usual kind of story. Now, I'm not saying any story is usual, but like I didn't really have mental health issues growing up. Like obviously we all get sad, like we all have down days and stuff like that. But overall, I was quite mentally okay, mentally sound to an extent. And then it was like towards the end of 2015, I was physically unwell, and due to the medication that I took, I had like medically induced depression. And at the start, I just remember just like kind of thinking to myself, oh, it's fine. It's just like, it's just a down week, you know, and then those weeks turned into months, and so on and so forth. And first I didn't really want to get help, but I think it was when I started to notice I wasn't really doing much anymore. I wasn't like, even brushing my teeth and stuff like that was such a big chore for me. And generally I'm like, I'd like to think that I stay on top of my hygiene and stuff. So I think that was quite alarming for me when I didn't want to like shower, brush my teeth, do like basic things that us humans should do. And I think my family kept being like, where's Fatima gone? Like, what's happened to her? And I just remember being like, I don't know where she is, like, because, you know, she's definitely not here. And then I remember it all kind of started off with not being able to sleep. And in the past, I didn't really struggle that much. I probably did like crazy all-nighters and stuff like that, but still, like, sleep wasn't a massive issue for me. And then I remember going to the GP and I was just like, here, like, doctor, I just can't sleep anymore. You know, just give me something or tell me what to do because this isn't on. And I just remember, like, because she kind of knew my background and like what I've studied and stuff like that. And she was like, Fatima, you know the psychology behind this, you know, like, you'll be fine. Like, this is, you know, just write it through. I'm not really comfortable giving you anything. And I just remember being like, yeah, I'll be fine. That's fine. You know what? I'll just tell myself not to be depressed, and I'll just, you know, do some sort of psychological interventions on myself because that's really possible. And so as time went on, my parents and my family tried to intervene, and, you know, they'd just be kind of, they tried to understand, but I think unless you've like gone through it yourself, or, you know, you really have insight into it, it's very hard to understand something like that. And I remember just becoming really withdrawn. And that's when, like, my dad tried to get one of his psychiatrist friends to kind of intervene and have a chat with me. And I don't know what his intentions were very good, bless him. Like, my dad always wants the best for me, and, you know, I'll always be grateful for that. But I think because he's a physical health doctor, like, he didn't really understand the depth to how much I was struggling. And I remember this like doctor uncle friend, and he was like, you know, what's happening, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, first of all, like, I'm quite an open person, but to just randomly tell your dad's friend what's happening, regardless of his profession, it's very uncomfortable. And I just remember him just, he was just trying to help me. And he just, I think all I really took from our conversations and stuff was, Fatima, think of depression like a fractured brain or a fractured mind. And, you know, as all fractures, it takes time for it to heal and stuff like that. And I remember being like, that's great, you know, like more time of depression. That's really what I wanted to hear. And I guess the way he was thinking about it was like from a logical kind of point of view, even though he is a psychiatrist. But I think things just went from like just really downhill from there. And there's so many details in between, but we'll literally be here till next Ramadan, so I just kind of need to cut it short. And then I think the next major thing that happened was my parents decided that it was best that I take a little trip to India because I was on a gap year from uni. And I was like, great, you know, I can see like, you know, my grandmothers and stuff like that because they were alive back then as well. And, you know, I hadn't really spent much time with them. And I literally thought that was it, that's a fix. Like, I'll go to India, this will all disappear, you know, I'll have some time away from this crazy world and I'll be fine. But little did I know that it was just all literally a downward spiral from there. And as days went by, I literally lost more and more insight. And I just remember just having crazy delusions, hearing all sorts of things that didn't exist, but to me felt so real. Like, I remember just constantly, when I try to go to sleep, I just like hear the shower running, but we didn't use the shower in my like grandmother's bathroom, so I didn't know how that would happen. And I'd be like to my grandmother, I'd be like, Mama, can you hear that? Like, can you hear that? And she'd be like, no, it's fine, like just go to sleep and stuff like that. And as days went by, you know, first of all, I was already sleep deprived and along the longest journey of my life, and that's not even an exaggeration, like from Newcastle to Manchester to Dubai to India, and then from India, like it was just crazy. And at that point I wasn't eating. I'd completely neglected myself to the point where I wasn't even going to the bathroom because of all the connotations in my head that I had with the bathroom. Like, I just remember just thinking, I already feel so unclean. If I go to the bathroom, that's more of a reason for me to feel even more unclean. So I was avoiding that because I've got this like almost, well, at that point is I had this obsession of being clean, feeling clean, smelling good. Like, you know, I think is it like no obsession is good, but on a normal level, all those basic hygiene things are good. But then it deteriorated, and then I got to a point where my dad just kind of had enough. And like throughout the whole time, my dad was there for most of it, and him once again, like being a doctor, he had no clue. He was just, I remember him just looking at me being like, are you doing this for like attention? Like, what are you trying to achieve? And like he'd ask me some crazy questions like, do you enjoy making everyone like feel like this? And you know, I don't know, I think he was as lost as me, to be honest. And like it got to a point where I didn't even know my name myself. Well, I did, but I wasn't sure. I think it's called depersonalization, where when you've removed yourself so far that you don't really know who you are. And yeah, so anyways, I developed like full-fledged depressive psychosis. And psychosis is literally when you lose touch with reality, and both reality and what's happening in your mind becomes morphed, and you can no longer distinguish what's real or not, just for those that might not know. So yeah, so I'm gonna leave that bit aside. Anyways, if you guys want to know more, just, you know, reach out and I'll happily tell you the rest of the story. But you know, one of the craziest things that happened during my psychosis was the fact that while I was like, you know, being not rushed to hospital because I was physically ill, but because I was behaving outrageously. I tried to jump out of a moving car, and I think that will always like resonate with me, because if it wasn't like my dad literally like holding on to me and trying to restrain me, even though I like ended up ripping his shirt and his shirt pocket up, like I don't know, you get crazy strength during that time. And you know, he saved my life, like obviously through Allah. And you know, anything could have happened, but, and I know we can say that about anything, but like, you know, it can be quite dangerous if you don't deal with it from an early stage. And from what Minha said, prevention is so important. Like prevention is better than cure and treatment, because you know, you just don't want to get to that point where you've lost all touch with reality, because that is like when you're most vulnerable, and it's not a good type of vulnerability. And yeah, so anyways, moving on, I, you know, came back to the UK, had some struggles and stuff like that. And one thing was, I remember my dad getting me an appointment with a GP here, and he just like refused to believe that I had like psychosis, or I was on these like medications from back home because I had psychosis. Like he was like, yeah, I just think you're depressed, you know. And I remember I was so out of it at that point, like on antipsychotics and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I think so, you know, whatever you say, etc., etc. Anyways, that's a whole story in itself. And I just remember feeling so neglected by him. Anyways, he made me like rip up the consent form that I had written for him, so my dad could discuss things, because I was over 18, etc., because he thought there was some sort of Asian domestic thing going on. And yeah, but the reason I mentioned that was actually recently, with all this COVID stuff happening, he actually ended up being the doctor that treated me. So I was actually quite ill for like 5 weeks, and not mentally, like physically. And alhamdulillah, mentally, Allah like performed some miracles, because I was fine. But yeah, and I remember getting a phone call, because after so many appointments over the phone with NHS 111, like having paramedics come to our house, etc., he just rang me, and because he was like vetting all the people that potentially have COVID. And I remember just hearing his name, and I'm not going to mention it, I'll try not to mention it, and I was like, what? Like, this is the same doctor that rejected my mental health issues and said he wasn't going to help me unless I tell him the truth, even though I was telling him the truth. And you know, he comes through, and this was 5 years ago, and I never did anything about it. I could have like filed for medical negligence, you know, all that stuff, but I was like, nope, justice comes in different ways, etc. And you know, he literally helped me be able to breathe again, and get my lungs back like on track and stuff like that. Still not fully there, but you know, alhamdulillah. And that was my justice. Like that was literally, like after that phone call, I remember just feeling like, oh my God, like even though I waited 5 years for that, like that feels so damn good, like the sweetness in it. And I was like, yeah, like, and the thing is, I don't even think he remembers who I am. Maybe he does, I guess we'll never know. But it was just one of those moments where I was like, this is why Allah told me to be patient. This is why my gut was like, don't report him, be patient and whatnot. But yeah, so I think that's just a little insight into, I guess, what happens when you don't necessarily get the justice for all the injustices that happen to you all the time. And you know, it's not always a fairy tale story or anything, but you know, when Allah's got your back, he's got your back, whether it be 1 year, 2 years, like 10 million years, like he's got your back. And sorry, I've got a 5-minute reminder, so I'm gonna speed this up. So yeah, anyways, I got kind of the right help that I required. I'm so sorry, the blind. It's just like blinding me. Sorry guys. But yeah, so I was with early intervention in psychosis, alhamdulillah. They helped me out so much. You know, I got back into the community. I got back into exercising, because for a lot of people that know that have struggled with mental, oh my god, that have struggled with, I'm so sorry guys, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, just leave it, just leave it, thanks, sorry. I'm so yeah, we're just having a bit of an issue with the light, but yeah, let me just compose myself. So yeah, early intervention and psychosis, they're all about prevention and intervening early, as it says in the name. And you know, they literally just help me kind of incorporate day-to-day activities back into my life, etc. And alhamdulillah, my life started getting back to normal. I went back to uni the following year, and then that's when I had my next episode, which was once again induced by medication. Anyways, long story short, it's not, but yeah, I ended up being hospitalized for like 5 months, etc. It wasn't great, but you know, it had to be done. But now, alhamdulillah, even though loads of psychiatrists told me I'd be stuck on lithium for years, you know, they gave me the diagnosis of bipolar, but apparently that's not even true. Well, it's not that it's not true, but they're just basically saying that it's not the right, probably not the right diagnosis for me, and it's probably just a mix of just life experiences, trauma, etc., and obviously the medical induction. But yeah, so alhamdulillah, the last few months, even though 2020 has been crazy for almost a lot of people in terms of my mental health and stuff, I feel like it's had a massive turnaround. And you know, alhamdulillah, I've like finally reduced so much of my medication. I'm like halfway there with my lithium reduction, and you know, even last year my psychiatrist told me that I'd have to be on it for another 3 years. And you know, all I'm saying, guys, is like nobody knows what's for sure, what's not, and like nothing's set in stone. Like it really depends how bad you want it as well. And I remember, like, I'm not one to like set out goals or anything like that, like clear-cut goals, but one goal that I did have for 2020 was medication reduction. I just wanted to be off my lithium, and alhamdulillah, you know, it's slowly happening. And even if it had to happen by me getting ill first through lithium toxicity, like so much goodness came out of it. And what I'm trying to say is, you know, no doctors, no humans actually know what's going to happen, only Allah does. And just keep that faith and, you know, hope in him, and you know, things will slowly gradually get better. I think I've run over time, and I'm not sure how much of the creativity aspect I can speak about. So yeah, okay, so I'm going to just speak about the creative aspect of things. And what I learned was, throughout my whole mental health experience, was my soul was my biggest protective factor. And this was only due to the training that took place throughout my life. And that wasn't like some intentional, vigorous training. It was just basically things like being mindful of God, you know, stuff like that. And what I really like, it was a protective factor that came in disguise. Like I didn't even know it existed, but it was because of like the things that I did before becoming mentally ill and stuff like that, and you know, trying to be connected to Allah and things like that, that actually helped me from and prevented me from doing some drastic things, such as like taking my own life and stuff like that, because something deep in me, when I had no insight, still told me, my soul stopped me from like going ahead with certain things and whatever thoughts that were in my head, because you know, it happens to the best of us. Like you can't control your mind once it runs wild. And what I realize is that I have to carry on training my soul. I have to carry on doing things that will keep it, you know, like kind of keep it, I can't really think of the word, but yeah, like as in carry on doing things that will kind of keep my soul thriving, etc., and prepare myself for the best and worst, so that anything that happens in between I can just naturally adapt to. And how I tend to do this is like, I genuinely just like, there's no like fixed kind of crazy creative things that I do, but it's just like open conversation and open communication with Allah. Like, and I think I mentioned this last time as well, like anything that happens in my mind which I can't really articulate to anyone else, etc., even things I have discussed with other people, I just have this open conversation with Allah, whether it be in my head or out loud when I'm in my room or anywhere private. And that really, really helps me hear my thoughts and what's actually rational and what's not rational, and what's in my control and what's not in my control. And I think that's one of the biggest things with mental health, that not knowing what's gonna happen, the uncertainty. A lot of people say that, like, you know, that's what is paralyzing for them. And you know, when you know that Allah is constant in your life and he's not going anywhere, like literally people come, people go, you know, parents, like family members, everyone, they come, they go, people pass away, it's just a part of life. But Allah is that one constant in your life, and nobody can take that away from you as long as you consistently and constantly remember him and have that deep in your heart. Because when you have that constant, you just know that regardless of how crazy life gets, there is an okay, there it is going to get better, there is a like bright light at the end of all of it. And you know, it's so easy to say all of this, but I say this from like personal experience. And I think even if you ask people close to me and my friends or whatever, they would be like, you know, yeah, Fatma's life has been a bit wild, but you know, alhamdulillah, Allah's always given me that hope and faith in him, even at the darkest of times. And you know, it's so cliche and people say that a lot of the times, but when you truly believe it and you incorporate it into your day-to-day life, whether it be even being mindful of being able to brush your teeth or etc., like there's just so many ways of remembering Allah without even realizing. But I think that's it. But I just wanted to leave you guys with the just the fact that, you know, we should all live life for ourselves. And that doesn't mean, like, you know, in this Western world, people say, oh, you do you know, like, yeah, like don't worry about what anyone else says or what anyone else does. But when you actually genuinely live life for yourself, you end up living it through the love of your Lord, through the love of your Creator, what's best for you. And through that, you end up helping others, you end up caring about others, because that makes you happy. So living life for you doesn't necessarily make you selfish, it just makes your life more beneficial. And that's literally it. And you know, there was so much I wanted to include, but inshallah maybe next time. But I hope that was somewhat beneficial for everyone. And you know, if anyone didn't want to ask any questions on this, feel free to reach out via my Instagram, and I'll get back to you all inshallah in due time. And yeah, sorry guys.
Fatima, that was really amazing, mashallah. And I'm really sorry guys that we couldn't extend her time, and I'm sure this will be a reoccurring thing. But you know, inshallah, in the future, you know, maybe we can have like a longer period of time. But again, that's what the questionnaire is for, guys. So let us know what you want us to do and how you want us to grow and what you want in the future, inshallah. So I mean, all of it was really great, and you're such an eloquent speaker, Fatima. But I think for me, that was, I think, the most profound thing that you said is that, you know, despite 2020 being like all up in the air, like you've been able to find something so beautiful in all of this, despite whatever is happening in the world. And I think that is, like, in a nutshell, like a journey in mental health, is finding the good in the bad. So just, and it's obviously everything else that you said was amazing, but for me that was what stuck out the most. So jazakallah khair for sharing that. And you've got like amazing comments, you're such an inspiration, your energy transpires in different ways, you know, loads of people are saying thank you for sharing your story. So honestly, it's been an honor to host you. So we are a little bit delayed, inshallah, but that's fine. We're going to crack on. Our second speaker is Heretic, who is an individual that is passionate about mental health and creating awareness for it, but he also wants to uplift those that are suffering. He'll be sharing with us bits of his story and how creativity has helped him, and he'll also be kindly performing some of his spoken word for us today. So Jazakallah khair, Heretic, for being here today with us.
Jazakallah khair for having me, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone who is watching. I just want to quickly start by saying mashallah to Fathima. Like, her story was amazing, and mashallah, sister, you're such a strong individual. May Allah bless you and continue to give you that strength. So I'm just going to briefly talk about my story. I'm not going to get too much into it, as it is quite a long story. So I'm just going to say that there are certain aspects in my life, like the death of my granddad, in which I was very close to, that sort of gave me this feeling of emptiness. And I was young when my granddad passed away. I was about 10 years old. But ever since he passed away, I had this lack of belonging. So even if I was in family gatherings, I felt like I didn't belong there. I felt like no one really liked me, even though my cousins liked me, alhamdulillah. I'll be a bit worried if my cousins didn't like me. But so it just became this thing of fast forwarding up until, let's just say, the age of 20. I had quite a few things happen to me. You know, we've all lost loved ones. My mother ended up getting ill with cancer. She survived, alhamdulillah. But obviously that took its toll out on me. That took its toll out on my education. And amongst other things that happened to me, it made me feel really sad. And being a man suffering mental health, I found it very difficult. The way that society is, it's basically man up. And it's a statement that I hate with such passion. I dislike this statement so much, because that statement sort of tells men that they can't have emotions, that they can't feel anything. And I don't agree with that. So this is why I believe that male suicide rates are at such peak times right now, because men don't feel like they can speak about it. And if they do speak about things, then they're almost stripped of their masculinity. And so I felt really alone suffering my mental health. You know, I went through heartbreak, and I found it difficult to speak about that too, because, you know, men don't feel that sort of thing, or so people say. But I've always been a person that's been very emotional. I'm very one with my emotions. And, you know, just kind of, I remember trying to speak about it a couple of times, and then people just kind of shrugged it off. Like, you know, things will get better, things will get better, things will get better. And it's only when things didn't get better, and this is trigger warning, this is when suicide seemed like the best option for me. Like, you know, end things, because, you know, I'm living life which is hell, and I can't deal with it anymore. I felt like, you know, Allah was giving me too many trials, too many tests that I couldn't deal with. So I thought to kill myself. And I remember I was within days of doing so. I was just kind of researching ways to do it in a painless manner, because I just didn't want it to be painful for when I leave this world. And I remember entrusting someone, and I go, you know, in the next few days, things might go bad for me. And if that happens, I need you to tell my family that there was nothing that they could do that could have stopped what was meant to be. And I remember this person, who was a family member, I won't name them, but they basically just called me crying. It was like, what's wrong? Like, what were you talking about? And I was just like, I can't do it anymore. I genuinely can't do it anymore. And I remember just like, when I think about it now, I wasn't picking up phone calls at that period. I wasn't talking to them at that period. I don't know what made me do it. Allah saved me that day, because if Allah didn't allow me to pick up that phone call, I don't think I would be here. It's when I answered that phone call that, you know, we spoke, me and my cousin, and we kind of got through it. And, you know, I was always a person that was, I'd like to think that I was very close to my deen, like very, very close. Not to say I'm not close to my deen now, but at that point in my life, I was at such a peak with my deen and my iman. Like, I was heavily involved in dawah stuff, ISOC stuff, etc. And it's when all these things happened to me and I got suicidal that everything started to deplete. And in that happening, I basically fell in deen quite hard. I ended up resorting to my form of self-harm and expression. It was a thing of, it started off as expression to then a form of self-harm, and that was getting piercings. literally every other day I would get a new piercing. It just ended up to a point where, you know, I still have the scars. Like some people have scars, I have piercing scars. I ended up getting up to about 27, 28, 28 piercings, something along the lines of that. That was my form of harming myself or expressing myself. And then it's after that that I then discovered a creative coping mechanism. And for me, it was writing. Now, I've been writing for a while, alhamdulillah, but I've only taken it seriously from about the age of 20, just after I got very suicidal. And the beauty of writing is that, you know, it's a way to sort of express yourself, but it's very liberating. It's very free. Like, you are allowed to, as long as you're not spewing hate, you are allowed to say whatever you want to say, and people will either relate to you or people will understand. And it's a sort of, especially if you, how I used to write when I first started, I used to write, I wasn't confident saying that it was me. So what I had done, which some people may find funny, I personally have found that people are able to be more empathetic towards emotions when it comes to females. So I created a female character in the form of my writing. So I would express my insecurities, my mental health through this female character. And then, you know, people would comment and people would be like, oh, you know, may Allah make it easy for whoever you're writing about and stuff like that. But it was actually about me. That's how I used to write. And in writing like that, you know, I started writing very dark pieces and stuff like that. And one thing I do want to say about, if you choose to write, you know, your dark feelings and stuff like that, is be careful with how you do it. Because one of the problems that I had in creative writing and going towards poetry is that I created a lot of depressive content. And in doing so, I created a very dark Instagram, because Instagram was my handle of where I used to upload things, to the point where you kind of start, like, it's a very, very weird thing to say, that, but you start enjoying the darkness. You start enjoying the company of the demons and the devils. Like, and you end up staying in that very dark place. So my advice to anyone that is looking to go into creative writing or is a writer, when you're writing, try to mix up the pieces. Try to have pieces of hope, pieces of love. Don't suck yourself into your own world and keep yourself depressed. Because one thing I always say is, you can't expect light to penetrate a room when you have the shutters closed. And what I mean by that is, you can't expect happiness. You can't expect positivity to come into your heart and your soul if you keep those shutters closed. If you lock all the light out, you can't expect to get any better. Sometimes, and I say this through personal experience, you need to allow positivity to come to you. And it's a hard thing to do, but, you know, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his strength and his guidance to help you. Now, I'm going to be showing one piece with you guys that I wrote recently, because despite everything, even though I do writing, I do still have episodes where I do feel depressed still. Now, this is it's a little bit of a trigger content, but it's something that I wrote, I think, about a few days ago. And it's a piece basically about just forgiving myself and just knowing that it's not my fault, the way I feel. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. What is forgiveness without mercy? But where does mercy draw its line? I'm running out of time. What is forgiven if I'm not learning from mistakes? But mistakes are all I have. So I sit here and I cry myself to sleep, contemplate to suicide. Do I give up? I just want to die. I just want to die. I just want to die. I remain a charm around the wrist, Pandora, but I wrap that string around my neck till it's over. Can't take these demons in my head any longer. Fought for many years, now the demons have me weaker. Darkness drowns me, I swallow dark water, semicolon, cause my story ain't over. The story ain't over, but I'm not getting any stronger and I'm tumbling. Mama, how do I tell you? I don't want to breathe. I just want to live, and I'm pulled towards death like it's gravity. I'm struggling to live with anxiety. It's killing me. When's it going to be my turn to live life happily? But I put my trust in my Lord, even if I don't get his plan. I try to keep hold onto faith and hope, but I can't. My grip slips on that rope, and I'm struggling to understand the nature of God's plan. Now, that's an unfinished piece, sorry, that I just wanted to put out there. So going back to what I was saying before is, I've changed the way I've written. It's not very dark. It's got dark elements in it where, you know, I do feel weak, and obviously I do get moments where I do feel suicidal, but I'm still thinking about Allah. I'm still thinking about, you know, my faith, because at the end of the day, if we lose everything, the one thing we will always have is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will always have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When people turn their backs on us, our mothers can turn their backs on us, our families can, our friends can. But the one person that I promise you that will never turn his back on you is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So always, 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 you know, go back to Allah. Even if it's like, you know, one prayer a day. One prayer a day is better than no prayer a day. That's one thing I always say to everyone. Now, how writing can be used as a therapy. Now, for me personally, writing became therapeutic for me because I felt it was a way for me to express myself in a way that I felt comfortable to do so. Because, you know, sometimes we don't feel comfortable speaking to people about it. It's a very daunting experience speaking to people about our mental health problems, because, you know, we feel vulnerable. When you speak about your mental health, you feel vulnerable. It's almost like you're giving someone the power to hurt you. And I didn't like doing that a lot of the times. So I always went to writing, because writing is a thing of, you know, some people will take it literally and some people will take it as stories. And that's the beauty of writing, because it can be whatever you want it to be. It can be stories about you. It can be stories of hope. It can be prayers even. I've done pieces where, you know, they've been like prayers. And that's what I love about writing, is this, it brings together a community, like, and it gives you strength to speak about things that you may not have been comfortable to speak about, because, you know, you're scared of what people will think. When it comes to writing, you're not scared of what people will think, because ultimately you are the author of your own pieces. So you share what you want to share. You will create characters if you need to share characters. It doesn't need to be about you. Like how I said, when I first started writing, I wrote about a female character, but that character was me, but no one knew that was me. And it was liberating for me to know that I'm actually expressing myself without people actually knowing that this is actually about me. And I used to write in very metaphoric ways. Now, one thing I do want to say is, Minha did mention it before, where she was talking about having different coping mechanisms. And I think that's very important too. Writing isn't my only, as in poetry isn't my only creative coping mechanism that I use. It's my primary one, but I also do enjoy photography. I also do enjoy blogging and stuff like that. You need to have different outlets, because like going back, and I know I keep going back to different points, but I really want to put emphasis on the point of, you know, when you get into dark writing, because I've seen a lot of people get into this sort of writing style where they talk about very depressive feelings. And I'm not saying that's incorrect. Like, no one can tell you that your pieces are incorrect. No one can tell you that you're wrong for writing the way that you write. But out of my own personal experiences, be very careful when you write dark things, because I know where the ideology of that has come from. It's come from, you know, when back in the days when you wanted to write something and you'd write a letter, and instead of posting it, you'd burn it. But we live in a digital world right now where we don't burn, we keep. So when we write a piece and we upload it, it's always going to be there. So in a way, if you have it all the time up on that post, up on your Instagram or up wherever you put it, you're almost sort of anchoring yourself to that memory, and you're not. So it's a thing of, you haven't actually let go of it. And in order to heal, you need to be able to accept what has happened and let it go. If you can, obviously, I'm not going to get too much into that, because obviously some people may not be able to let things go depending on the severity of what's gone on with them. But if you keep everything in this little, I refer to it as Pandora's box. Instagram is like my Pandora's box, or well, it was my Pandora's box. And you know, when you open Pandora's box, it's all hell, like all hell breaks loose. And one thing I ensure that I do is, like, I almost sort of bless my little Pandora's box with a little hopeful piece and stuff like that. And sometimes it's fun to write like fun pieces. Like sometimes I write jokey pieces, and I'm gonna share one more piece with you guys that I call Game Guide. Now, Game Guide is my outlook on life. Like, you know how they always say life isn't a game? Well, Game Guide is me telling you that life is a game. And I use different metaphoric references to discuss that. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I am grateful for the hateful comments I've received in the past. I'm grateful to have moved past all the players in the game that we call life. They can't accept that I've grown apart and have taken apart the parts of their strength whilst they remain at the start. I think it's good to know it's a dog-eat-dog world, but this ain't a game of Ludo. Monopoly monopolizes the mindset that money moves masses, and that manifests malicious motives to make money quickly. See, life is like a game. Success takes time and you move up and begin to climb. But come across snakes and your plans may fold. So from king cobras to small puff adders, call life a game of snakes and ladders. See, they block success, strip away happiness and more. I'd ask, why do we not connect for? I said, why do we not connect for? Life is full of corpus, and as corpus are cats, parts of the cheese. We are pleased with material things, or what seems to have become fiends with. Gucci jeans and LVs and JD snapbacks. Best close to impress to get the snaps back. But be careful to fall into the game of mousetrap. So you call it cheesy, but if I was able to rearrange the alphabet, I would put you and I together, but then you became an X, and I was left questioning why. And I thought that brother was a good guy, but I never had a clue though. All those red flags passing by, but I failed to see the clues though. I thought I was in a good circle, I can't lie, but as the game came to an end, I realized I was in the wrong crew though. And I'm still trying to guess who stabbed me in the back so many times, still trying to figure out who murdered me this time. Yes, life is a game, I guess you could call it Cluedo. I am the dictionary definition of a broken. And the dictionary definition, I mean Pictionary definition of a broken soul. I may not be the greatest artist, but who says I can't create art with a broken pen? See, I can't take public humiliation because I have temptations to get angry when I'm insulted with shade, but I spin them jaws lyrically, but you can call me a Beyblade. And watch me let it RIP and RIP to the devil inside me. You have to expel the devil, pray and ask it to leave you, because life is a game, I guess you could call it Ouija. Now let's talk love. I love many things, but love was something my heart couldn't fathom. I used to love an individual with blue eyes, but you see, blue eyes was a dragon. I'm the king of games and you could call me Yami Yugi, and I will never let this life beat me. Life is a game and you've got to live it correct. You have to expect the difficulty may change, and you just have to go on to accept that there are no cheat codes through life. You can't cheat your way past death. One day you'll take your last breath, yes. Life is a game and there really is a game guide. There is more than just one, but my game guide has only just begun. So maybe there will be part 2 to help you get through and to find closure before your creator decides that it's game over. Now that's a piece I call game guide. But you guys understand how I'm able to now express myself in a way that I'm getting my feelings out there. You know, I'm talking about different things. I'm talking about heartbreak here. I'm talking about people stabbing me in the back here. But I don't do it in a way that I've created a dark entity within the piece. I haven't created a dark feeling this piece. I've made it almost jokey so that when I'm able to actually look back at this piece, I'm just like, you know what, that's funny right there, or that's funny right there. And, you know, it's a thing where when you do get into writing, be careful how you word things, I think. Like always write what you need to write, but my advice to those that want to get into writing or are writing right now, even if you have a moment or processes in life where you feel very depressed, always have a slight glimmer of hope in the piece. Have a slight glimmer of hope in the piece, so that if and when you do go back to this piece, you will look back to how you feel, but you will always see that you had hope. And in the topic of mental health, guys, when you're going through things, always have hope. I'm telling you, I've been in stages where, you know, I felt like all hope was lost. And, you know, sometimes I lose hope. I lost hope a few days ago. I lost hope a month ago. I lost hope 2 months ago. But, you know, as just keep praying. So if you guys are interested in getting into writing, do DM me, inshallah. My Instagram is up. I will help you to the best of my abilities, and I will support you, inshallah. If you guys would like to know how to get into writing, please do also DM me or ask on the question on the Q&A section afterwards. Jazakallah khair for everyone listening. I will pass it over to Sister Minha now.
Jazakallah khair for that, brother Heretic. MashaAllah, I like not resonate, but I really liked 2 specific parts of what you said. All of it was great, mashallah, but I think it was really good how you honed in the message about how even like you mentioned that your iman and your deen was at an all-time high, and yet you experienced mental health problems because like of things that you had experienced. And I think that's really important to, you know, highlight that when people say like, oh, people with mental health issues don't have iman, or they're not grateful enough and things like that. But actually it can happen to those who are praying regularly, those of us who are in good company. Like this is something that's, you know, been God given, and is something that we've been tested and trialed with. And, you know, we all know that Allah loves to test those that he loves the most, right? So, and also how, you know, I think it's really important to, you know, what you said about actually creating dark pieces and putting them out online. it's not necessarily just for yourself, like you're, you know, exposing it to other people. And I really love how you said, like, back in the day they would write a letter and burn it. They don't do that now. So I thought that was, you know, even as a reminder for myself, like even when I post stuff online, I'm thinking actually maybe it's not the greatest space. And of course, you know, keeping it privately, that's one thing, but then, you know, giving it out to the public. And one sister made a really good comment about Instagram algorithms and how dark content gathers like more views and can be more triggering. And I think there's like a notion in society where like mental health is almost glamorized. Like if you're stressed and you're unhappy or you're depressed or you have anxious, it's like the in thing to have. But, you know, we know from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, you know, we shouldn't be sheep in these kinds of things, and we should always stand up for, you know, what's the truth, what's haqq, and, you know, what's valid. So inshallah, Jazakallah khair to our amazing speakers firstly, mashallah. You know, I could go on and on and on about this sort of stuff, but I just want to remind you guys that we will be moving on to the Q&A very, very shortly, inshallah. So if you have any questions, please get them typed up in the group chat or message them directly to Sadia if they're private and you want them to be answered. Of course, you can access our speakers on Instagram. So Fathima is holistic.perspective and Heretic is _heretic poetry, inshallah. I'll also share
Heretic official.
Heretic official. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so bad.
It's okay.
So I'll put it up on my screen as well, inshallah. So I just want to say a reminder, guys, please don't leave. I'm going to talk about Inspirited Minds, and I know that a majority of you have already heard me say this like 100 times, but today's going to be really, really short because I do want to get into the Q&A. I'm sure a lot of you have like juicy questions, inshallah. So I'm just going to take you through to my screen, inshallah. Hopefully you guys will be able to see it. Let me just minimize this, inshallah. Okay, cool. So this is our website. I just want to take you guys through it a little bit so you guys know what's what, inshallah. So you can access help. Oh, sorry, not that. So this is our homepage. You can access help by pressing on the get help button here. We do offer Islamic counseling on a, you know, a wide range of issues. So you can see like here what you might be experiencing and how we can help. You can also check out all of our previous events, and if you guys want to request a speaker, you can do by clicking onto our team, and then you can request a speaker for each person, basically, inshallah. We have a blog, crazy amount of information on here. We've discussed like all kinds of things. We've got gratitude, beauty romantic attachments, social media. There's I can't tell you how much we've got on there. We've also got a specific coronavirus page. So these are our webinars, of course, our articles. We've got some more coming up, but we've got, you know, we've on here is working from home, reflection points, money management, eating disorders, and like self-harm and how it can be escalated being at home more and stuff. So that's that, inshallah. We've also done like, you know, so many events on like a wide range of workshops. So we've done gym possession, we've got imam training as well. There's just so much. If I took you through to the website, you know, would be here all day. So I really encourage you guys to check out our website, inshallah. But there is something that I wanna share with you, and it's a bit of a personal discovery that I found earlier this year. So sorry, earlier this week. I am going to be asking you guys for donations in a short while, but don't get turned off. This is like a completely different opportunity this week. So as a charity with a 100% donation policy and like volunteer led, as a lot of you know, we survive on generous donations and acts of charity from our supporters and of course our speakers and all of you guys here. But before I share with you guys two fantastic opportunities, I just want to share with you what, you know, a little discovery that I found a couple of days ago. So in Surah Ali Imran, verse 92, Allah says, never will you attain the good reward until you spend in the way of Allah from that which you love, and whatever you spend, indeed Allah is knowing of it. So is anyone familiar with Allah's name Al-Bar? So Al-Bar is the source of goodness. And in this ayah, Allah chose Al-Bir specifically to describe goodness. he could have used any other word in the Arabic language to describe goodness in the ayah, like khair or hasana and so on. I mean, I'm not an Arabic grammatician. No, that's not the right word. Anyway, I'm not an expert in Arabic. But so Allah's name is Al-Bar, the source of goodness. And he is the one that gives Al-Bir, which is goodness. And we can only attain this if we spend in the way of Allah from that which we love. And you know, subhanAllah, to me that like just touched me on a different level, because I feel like Allah is like saying to us, like, I am Al-Bir, and I'm going to give you some of my goodness if you spend in the way of me. You know, subhanAllah. And like some of the explanations of Al-Bir is also Jannah, but it also refers to like a vast open land, like a really big land. So essentially like the reward of this, so the reward of spending in the way of Allah, the Al-Bir of spending in the way of Allah is huge, like as big as this vast open land, subhanAllah. So the two opportunities I'm gonna present to you guys today, inshallah, is we have had two amazing sisters who have volunteered to fundraisers for us. They're not part of our team. We don't know them personally, you know, subhanAllah, and we haven't bribed them into fundraising for us, anything like that. But you know, they have come forward to fundraise for us, mashallah. And because we're so grateful, we just wanted to help them smash their targets, inshallah. You know, this sister, she actually has lived experience, and this other sister is hosting like a bit of a giveaway, so she's going to be giving an Amazon voucher and a rainbow Quran, mashallah. So I mean, both of them are still a bit away from their targets, so inshallah I'm praying that you guys can split your donation in half today to each sister's cause. So whether that's £20 to each, £10, £5 or £2, inshallah, please give, even if it is £2 to each sister. You know, I cannot imagine the joy that they're going to feel knowing that somebody out there has heard their request to donate to Inspirited Minds. And I know by this point, you know, guys, subhanAllah, I know by this point that you guys are all donated out due to the number of campaigns and challenges out there. And you know, I'm sure you guys are getting like bombarded with WhatsApp messages and, oh, please donate £2 here, and please donate anything you can, and you know, charity does not decrease wealth and all that sort of stuff. I know that we can get burnt out, I know, but I want to reiterate that we are totally volunteer led, and I don't want to emotionally blackmail you guys. I don't want to promote us as like, you know, poverty, like piety, poverty and all that palaver. But I do want to say that every single penny that you give us will go straight back into the community and towards serving you guys, so that we can put on more of these things, so that we can continue with the work that we do, so that we can continue giving out and fulfilling our purpose, which is to serve the ummah, inshallah. So please, I request anyone here today to, inshallah, please give, even if it is just £2 to each sister, inshallah. You know, we're in the halfway through Ramadan, and I just feel like there's no better time than to take advantage of Ramadan than now, inshallah. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm not going to spend too much more time on it, because I feel like now, you know, inshallah, for those of you who will donate, they will donate regardless, and those of you who can't, then please, inshallah, do make dua for the two sisters, do make dua for us as well, inshallah. Also, you guys can you know, access everything on our social media. So at Inspirited Minds, we're on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I think I said Twitter, but if I didn't, then Twitter. You know, our our podcasts are also on all major streaming platforms. You can subscribe to our newsletter, our mailing list, to get newsletters weekly. But also we've got a number of vacancies on our website. So if you guys, you know, we need your talent, we need your time, inshallah. So if you feel like you want to give back to us as well, we have like a number of vacancies on our website, inshallah. We're always looking to expand and grow the team. So please do apply to any of these, check them out, inshallah. So yeah, I just want to also shout out Holistic Perspective on Instagram again. Oh, she's got 5 more followers already. That's amazing. So please do check her out. Also Heretic _Heretic official is on Instagram, so do check him out as well, inshallah. But I just want to say one last time, please guys, consider donating any amount today, because this will ensure that, you know, we are sustainable, and not only sustainable in terms of the work we do, but we're sustainable for other people, and we can continue to support others, and we can make sure that people who need us, or people who need the support, and people who need that light in the times of darkness, they have it. You know, no one should go without any kind of support, inshallah. So before I get emotional, I'm gonna inshallah go on to the Q&A. So just to let you know that the 2 fund Just Giving links have been shared in the chat box, so please do check them out, inshallah. But I'm going to hand it over to Sadia, who's going to do the Q&A now.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hope you found this webinar beneficial. I've had really amazing questions sent through to me. Firstly, actually, I wanted to mention about some of the comments that both of the speakers have received, and alhamdulillah, so many people have mentioned that they can connect with it, and a lot of these stories have been resonating with them, whether it's connecting personally to themselves or it could be with their loved ones. I want to start off with asking questions to both of our speakers. So the questions that were directed to both speakers first, and you both can take a few minutes to answer them, and then inshallah I'll move on to specific ones, if that's okay. Yeah? Okay. Perfect. Okay, so again, feel free to answer them, and if you're not comfortable, you know, feel free to pass it on, it's not a problem. Have either of the speakers accessed peer support groups in the community? What was the most beneficial in this, and would they recommend it to others?
I'll let Fatima answer first and then I'll answer afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, Sadia, I didn't really hear the question properly.
Yeah, so did either of you ever access peer support groups? So I'm thinking this might be like circles, like attending with others, maybe focus groups. Hi, was that hello?
Okay, I'll go first. Okay, so so yes, I've tried peer support groups, but I am very selective with who I open up to. A lot of people think me being a spoken word artist, I put everything out there. But no, I'm very selective with what I put out there, and people think they know me, but no, they only know what I choose to put out there. So I think with in regards to peer support groups, I think it's an incredible thing to do. I think it's one of the things that has helped me. It's something that I've done for a number of years. But I would say if you are looking to obviously speak to your friends, be mindful that, you know, you can't trust everyone, but so speak to people you actually trust, people that actually want good for you. And I would always say have a different set of friends that you speak to. So, you know, people that will give you just general life advice, and have even friends that will give you some Islamic advice. It's good to have balance in the world. I always say in life, you always need balance in order to thrive and in order to succeed. So always have a balance in the people that you speak to. So yeah, speak to your friends. It can be very helpful, and it honestly does relieve a whole lot of stress from inside your heart.
Sorry,
Sadia.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Did you want me to answer that question as well, or? I think I interpreted the question a bit differently to Wajid. So I think, I'm not sure if this is what that person meant, but there are support groups in terms of like there's theatre groups and there's creative writing, stuff like that, different kind of therapy groups as well. Like here in Newcastle, we have the Recovery College, and they have like a whole host of things. And I have actually accessed them and stuff, and I still say to this day, like theatre group was one of the best that I've done. And I think as well as obviously speaking to your friends, etc., and like those who you trust from an Islamic and worldly perspective, as Wajid said, accessing these groups really do make such a difference, because nobody knows you. You can literally express who you want, like the part of you that you want to express, or just like your whole self, and that's your choice. And obviously you have that choice with other people as well. But yeah, I definitely recommend them. Like if you have anyone local, etc., and if you know anyone that's also suffering with mental health, like kind of encourage each other and kind of take them to the group as well. That would be good.
Yep, those are great tips. Jazakallah khairan. Do you both have any tips on how to forgive oneself if they are struggling with depression, and if they feel a lot of self-hate, sometimes you can go through that. So do you have any tips on, or maybe something?
I'll let Wajid go first.
It's actually interesting. So I used to feel the same way. Sometimes I used to be like, is it me that's ungrateful? And obviously, just touching on what Minha said just after I done my part, is she said that, when we suffer mentally, sometimes people say that it's because we're neglecting our faith. So I do like having people say that, maybe I'm not praying and stuff like that. It did have a negative impact on me, where I felt, maybe it is my fault that I'm depressed. Maybe I could do something about it. So I think what's important to know about, just being able to forgive yourself, is one thing that I always think about, is just what I was saying before about having balance. It's okay not to be okay sometimes. Like, it's impossible to be happy all the time. Like, you will experience sadness. And one way that I try and think of it is sadness is sometimes from Allah, because there is, I think it's a hadith or an ayah that says, if Allah wants to do good by someone, he afflicts them with trials. So I use that as a means of, it's okay to sometimes feel sad. And, sometimes we may react in certain ways. We may do certain things. Some people might, turn to drugs, or some people might turn to other things. And what's important to know is life is all about a journey. Like, don't think about yesterday, think about what you have now, and think about what you could do tomorrow. Yeah. So learn to just accept what's happened, and just tell yourself that, what, yesterday I wasn't the best person, but tomorrow I will be better. Today, right now, I will be better. If God gives me 24 hours tomorrow, I will be better than what I am today. And always sort of have that hope in that you are going to be better. And then just learn not to be hard on yourself. A lot of us, we are able to sympathize with other people. That's like, no, it's okay. But we need to have that same mentality for us. Like we always say, things will be better. And we give advice to other people, but we never take this advice on ourselves. Always remember the advice that you give to other people, and always put it on yourself.
Jazakallah khairan. It was really good. Fatima, did you want to add anything?
I think what Wajid said is like literally spot on. And I think, like, I'd say that, yeah, you have to go easy on yourself, but also be proactive in changing your circumstances that don't fit with what you're doing. So sometimes, like, these feelings of hate and like intense ill feelings towards yourself, they stem from somewhere. Like, they don't just randomly appear, like, it's not like COVID. Like, it's just, you went to sleep one day and the next day, like, the world's on lockdown. Like, it literally it stems from somewhere. So understanding the root of it like really helps you to find a solution, rather than just like being like, okay, everything's going to be all right. I just have to learn how to, like, forgive myself overnight, rather than doing that. Just kind of like find where it comes from, and go like think about it retrospectively. Absolutely. Rather than ignoring it and just hoping it will go away.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to now move on to specific questions, if that's okay with you both. We've got a question for Fatima. So someone wrote in that they've been in a very similar situation regarding delusion and obsessive thoughts. And I genuinely think that sleep deprivation was the biggest trigger. How did you start getting to sleep again? So inshallah, I think what they want to do through this question is help others as well, because I think sleeping difficulties, it's a really big concern.
100%. So thank you for your question, by the way. And I think for me, because I was so far gone with psychosis, the only way back initially was like drugs. So like, I can't remember, like my head's gone blank, sorry. So antidepressants and antipsychotics, that's the word. So for me, the antipsychotics like instantly help me sleep again, because they're very sedative. So you naturally, whether you want to or not, you do fall asleep, etc. And once I think my body got used to the drugs and stuff like that, it was somewhat trying to get a routine in place and doing things to promote sleep hygiene.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's so many articles on it and stuff like that online, even from an Islamic perspective. So like, I'm not just using that as like an escape route to this question, but just saying like we could sit here and speak about it for ages. But for me, it was like the antipsychotics and stuff like that that helped me get back to sleep initially. And there's a really good app called Headspace as well. I'm not sure if anyone's aware of that, but that really helps with mindfulness and getting to sleep, etc. So if anyone wants to try that in their spare time, because I know not a lot of people end up using like medication and stuff like that. So there are a lot of natural ways to do it, but I feel like we need a whole segment on that. But if that person wants to personally message me, like, I'm willing to discuss it further.
Great. One more question for you, Fatima, would be that someone wanted to know if they are losing the sight of Allah during psychosis, or during their period of psychosis. So they find it really hard to feel, sorry, I'm just going to read the whole question because I'm trying to summarize and it's not making sense.
Okay.
So they said, I wanted to ask a question about losing sight of Allah during psychosis. From experience, it has happened, and I find it really hard to feel, they feel truly alone. Does Fatima have any advice? Has that happened during her psychosis? And what does she do to hang on to Allah? So I guess what they're trying to say is they're feeling sense of maybe a distance with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or something along that line during their psychosis.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Sadia. So basically, during my psychosis, I wasn't, like, probably at the start I was praying and stuff because I still had somewhat insight. But after that, it was more my innate connection with Allah that was still there rather than the conscious kind of effort to remember him or speak to him. Like, there were times where I was like, whoever it is that's out there, you know, help me. Because at that point I was just like, you know, I don't know what's going on. So I wouldn't be too hard on yourself if you get lost to a point where you're not very conscious of Allah. If you have that innate kind of like predisposition to it, like, it will always be there as a protective factor. But don't be too hard on yourself for not actively or consciously being able to remember him, because Allah's like, Allah understands your situation, and when you don't have insight, you're not like held accountable for anything that happens during that time. Even if, you know, the prayers that you don't pray during that time and the ibadah that you don't do during that time, especially prayers, you don't need to repray them, like, because that is seen as you weren't mentally sound. So, you know, if Allah's that merciful and that forgiving, I think, you know, it's best to just kind of do what you can in that situation to somewhat stay like insightful to an extent, and don't be overly hard on yourself from an Islamic perspective, because it's more important to stay safe and make sure that you're okay on a whole. But yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think what you just touched upon, I wanted to just highlight something quickly, was you just said about how Allah is so merciful during that time because a person's not accountable. So it's interesting how Allah is able to do that, but we are so harsh on ourselves that we forget about his mercy. So inshallah, I think what you said would be quite beneficial for a lot of people. So going to Brother Heretic, so there's a question that's the person has asked. My question is, when you're in that state, I feel like all you want to do is look for the dark, and you almost don't want to look for anything good or positive, which makes me feel like it seems like I want to bring this on myself, which I don't. But any tips on how to bring yourself towards looking for the positive? I feel in that state, I don't think rationally, and it's so difficult to do so. Okay.
I completely understand what you're talking about, because I do the same thing. Even throughout the last week, I've been doing the same thing, kind of just, you know, you just type in dark quotes and then you just find dark quotes and then you kind of make yourself a little bit depressed. I'm not going to lie, I was literally doing that about 2 days ago. So, you know, it's all a journey. We have ups and downs with this mental health journey, alhamdulillah. But one thing that I do is I allow myself to have that little bit of a dark moment where I read stuff and I'm able to resonate with other people. Because when you are able to resonate with other people, I feel like you sort of don't feel so alienated within yourself. Like you actually feel, okay, there's actually someone else out there that, you know, feels the same way that I do. But my advice to you in what I do as well is, do not dwell in that period for too long. Give yourself about maybe 5-10 minutes. And then what I end up doing is I'll listen to positive stuff. And I don't mean I listen to like positive, like inspirational talks. I mean, I sometimes do, but sometimes like I'll listen to like, for example, like the other day I was down, I was listening to Oma Isa Kunanta, because the whole vibe of that nasheed is very uplifting, you know. And obviously I try not to listen to music, especially in the month of Ramadan, but so with Oma Isa Kunanta, it's uplifting, it's no music, but it's still got that uplifting thing where you kind of feel positive. So yeah, when you feel like you want to sort of surround yourself in darkness, try to give yourself that little push towards the light. And it doesn't mean you need to listen to anything hard hitting. Even if it's a song, even if it's a nasheed that's quite upbeat, it will have this impact on you where you will feel a little bit more upbeat, and then you will feel less inclined to go into that dark stuff. Then once you listen to one positive nasheed, listen to another one, then another one. One nasheed artist I do listen to a lot that makes me resonate a lot within myself is Talib Al-Habib. His stuff is very deep. It makes you very God conscious as well, because his pieces are very God conscious. It makes you contemplate within yourself. So I would say whenever you feel like you're in those dark moments, spend about maybe 5 minutes, maybe maximum 10 minutes, and then try to find something positive. I'm going to keep going back to the whole thing of balance. In order for life to be, you need to find balance. For every dark moment or every dark post you find one positive and hopeful post, so you kind of balance out, so you're not too inclined on the other things. And don't ever feel like you are making yourself depressed. Like, I know it's very easy to feel that way, where you're just like, oh, it's my fault, I'm depressed. It's not your fault. You're going to have days where you're not going to be able to heal, and that's okay. It's okay not to be okay some days, but just tell yourself that tomorrow is going to be better, inshallah.
Inshallah. Actually, I just realized this one is quite an interesting question. So somebody's asking, how do you know that what you're doing is fully for yourself and not to meet the standard of those around? So I'm thinking this might be in relation to maybe coping strategies or trying to do something, and you both can answer this one.
Okay, so one way in which I, like, whenever I post anything, right, I always think a few times before I post it, is this something I want to put out there? Like I was saying before, how I only put out what I really want to put out. So before I put up a post, I will always think about it. And trust me, when it comes to me, I don't do anything for people. The amount of backlash I got for calling myself heretic was the first hurdle that I faced. It's like, why did you call yourself heretic? It means this. I was like, no, if you actually look in the dictionary, it also means someone that has an opinion with what is not conventionally accepted by what greater society, which is the meaning that I take from it. And, you know, my pieces, what you always got to tell yourself when you're writing is, what are you writing for? And this is before you even start writing. Like, when you sit down with your pen and paper, or on my a phone, what is it that I'm writing for? Am I writing for the likes? Because I promise you, if you're writing for the likes and you're writing to get all these followers and stuff like that, you're not going to heal. You are not going to heal, because you're not doing it for yourself. You need to be able to put yourself first, put yourself on that spotlight, and just focus and forget about everything else. Which is one thing I would advise. Let your social media be that which you go to it to vent, and then you can easily just literally snap away from it. You can literally log out of it and it doesn't bother you. Don't become addicted to your social media. Don't become addicted to reading the comments. Like, if you actually look at some of my comments, I don't reply to them after days. Like, I'm very terrible. But that's because because I know if I start looking at comments straight away and people just are like, oh my gosh, I love your piece, or I hate your piece, it's going to make me start doubting my art. And I don't want to do that. So that's why I'm just like, I'll post a piece. I might read 1 or 2 comments and I'll reply to it. Then I'll come back to the rest of the comments in a few days when I feel like that piece is now in the past, kind of thing. What I was saying about, you know, being able to write and then leaving something where it was. So yeah, that's how I do things.
Okay, so Kala. Fatima, do you have anything
Like, I literally agree with everything that Wajid said, but I think when you check your intentions with almost everything that you do, you deep down know who you're doing it for and who's actually benefiting from it. And when you actually feel like do you know what, whatever form of creativity that it is that you're doing, like when I just say sing this song or when I do this, I feel good and it's a release for me, and therefore someone else might also benefit from it, then I think that you know your intentions are in the right place. Whereas when you're like, okay, what if I just put this out there, what other people say or whatever, you instantly know. Like I feel like as long as you have insight, deep down know when you're doing something for yourself and something that's beneficial for on a holistic level rather than just for other people and what you think other people want, if that makes sense.
No, that does. I think you hit the nail on the head. Actually, I'm just thinking almost time to wrap up. I will see if I can filter through one more question. No, I think we've covered most of them, alhamdulillah. Someone just mentioned, I think I just want to say it, especially thank you to you both, because sharing your experience, subhanAllah, I think it's one of the bravest things to do. Especially with the world and how much judgment there are in everything we do. As Brother Heretic himself said, there's judgment in the name he's taken or whatever, you know, he wants to use to express himself creatively. And I think in this world, being able to come out here, share your stories, that is very meaningful and so personal. Alhamdulillah, thank you so much for this time. I think a lot of people have benefited. I've had a lot of private messages come through. I'm just going to read one. Somebody just said, Jazakallah khairan so much for the answers to the whole of Inspirited Minds. These webinars are actually lifesavers. And I think when I read the lifesavers, I don't know, it just hit me a little bit. But alhamdulillah, thank you so much, everybody, for sending in your questions. But before I go, I just wanted to say that especially with Fatima's story and Brother Heretic, is that from what I've gathered is Fatima, you did try to get yourself diagnosed, and I think that is something, you try to seek help, and that is something you try to do. And if there's anything you both want to say regarding that before we wrap up, I think it would be nice, just like maybe a summary of why this might be important, or if someone might be struggling to do that anyway, but why do you think it is important to get yourself diagnosed in order to get yourself that help that's required?
So I think one thing that I heard the other day is it's not about the name of the disorder that you have that it matters the most. It's the patterns of what you're going through that matters, and that will enable you to get the treatment or the help that you require. So I think instead of focusing on getting a diagnosis, focus on getting that help or some sort of aid in order for you to understand what's really happening on a whole, like mentally, physically, and spiritually as well. Rather than ignoring it completely, hoping it will go away on its own. Two, letting cultural biases and cultural expectations of you to kind of just go back to your faith and it's a spiritual thing, it's not real, etc. Kind of listening to that and kind of ignoring what's really happening. Go to the right people, whether it be a GP. Sometimes it's easier to access a friend that probably has gone through something similar or knows stuff about that, and they can kind of signpost you to the right direction as well. But never ignore it, because the more it's kind of like if you have a cut and it's infected, right? Just because you put a plaster on it, the infection ain't going away. Unless you treat that infection, whatever is happening deep down, it's not going to go away overnight. No matter how many plasters you put on it, it's not going to disappear, and that's not the answer to it. But as scary as it is to ask for help, trust me, it's scarier to have no insight. It's so much scarier to not know what's going on around you, what's going on in your head, what people are thinking, what's true. Not to know reality is so much scarier than the fear you feel to ask for help and that ego thing, oh, what will people think of me? Because it's worth risking that rather than risking your insight. So that's literally, I think I'll leave it at that. And one little thing I want to add earlier on was like, you know, going through all of this, you get comments left, right, and center. Sometimes, you know, today, like, even throughout my talk, I was receiving such positive, beautiful comments, and, you know, I was probably smiling, and it looked like I was just like looking at myself smiling. But you know, and I want to thank everyone for all that like positive feedback. But one thing, especially with mental health, you get a lot of backlash, right? Especially in the Asian community, in the Arab community, in the Muslim community. And it's so hard sometimes not to pay attention to that. And, you know, trust me, I've got like, you know, gone through days where I've literally just one comment that someone made, that someone that I knew or didn't know that much made, just hit me so hard. And then I think the more I actually thought about that, I realized, you know, giving space to these negative comments, like if there's truth behind it, take the truth behind it and trying to incorporate some sort of change. But if there's so much negativity and you're giving that place in your heart and in your mind, not only are you affecting your mental and physical health by stressing about it, you're affecting your like spiritual health as well, because it lowers your iman, because you start kind of you know, listening to these people as if it's like God that came to you personally and said, oh, Fatima, you've gained a lot of weight since the last time I've seen you. Or, oh, did you know about your weight? Like, you know, did you realize you gained so much weight? Or like, you know, all these little things. You obviously, like, you know who you are. You see yourself in the mirror most of the time. It's not like one day you're going to wake up and be like, oh my God, the past few years I've, like, you know, I've gained like 20 kilos. I didn't know that. Like, you are so aware of that. So when you hear these negative comments, I'm not saying ignore them. Take what you can from them, whether it be a positive spin or just like, you know, doing something with it, but don't let it occupy your heart, because your heart's there to fill it with goodness. You know, your heart's there to fill it with love, whether that be like towards your creator, towards the creation, towards yourself, like first and foremost. Nobody deserves like that space in your heart if it takes it away, like takes it away from you loving others or yourself, etc. And yeah, and everything in moderation, be it good, be it bad, every single thing, because anything in excess, be it food, be it emotions, is a poison. So try to kind of find that balance, as Wajid kept saying, like an equilibrium on a whole. So yeah, sorry, I could go on and on. But
no, I think I didn't want to stop you. It was very beautifully summarized.
Thank you.
Brother Wajid, did you want to add anything to that?
I'll add briefly, because mashallah, Sister Fatima literally just said a lot of the things I wanted to say. Like, I was actually writing little things, and then she just said that. I was just like, okay, I need to do this bit. It's okay. Mashallah, you said a lot of gems in that. You hit a lot of nails on the head. One thing I do want to just add a few little things. You know, I think never feel you're weak for asking for help. The greatest of people, they became the greatest because they asked questions. And the strongest of people became strong because they asked for help. Like, you, like in an essence of, you know, gym, let's just say, right? Not that I go to the gym, but let's just talk about gym. You know, you're not going to just be able to walk into a gym and pick up 200 kg. You're going to have to work towards it. You're going to have to start picking up 20, then maybe 40, then 60. Work towards it and create sort of, you know, a realistic target. Set yourself realistic targets. Don't tell yourself, you know, today I'm depressed and today I'm suicidal, but tomorrow I'm going to be the happiest person on earth. It may happen. Inshallah, it does happen. I mean, but set yourself realistic targets. That's one thing I would say. And I want to say two little quotes that I believe in. Mental health isn't a choice, but recovery is. You may not have had the power to stop yourself from getting depressed, but you have the power to seek help. And also, don't let your struggle become your identity. You are more than just mental health. You are more than just depression. You are this sort of beautiful soul that Allah has created with so much intelligence, so much beauty. He's created you with so much love. So you know what, like how Sister Fatima said, you're going to be in a situation where you might get helpful comments. I've been called fat, I've been called this and that. But you know what? One thing I always say, you know what? The creation might hate me. The creation might find me ugly. The creation might find me fat or whatever. But the creator himself is the one who loves me. So forget about the creations. Think about the creator and how much he loves you.
Makallah khairan for. Can one of the. There you are. Okay, perfect. Now I just trying to use somebody. Thank you so much for highlighting this Heretic and Fatima. I'm going to pass it on to Sister Minha, Shaa Allah, and then she'll wrap it up for us.
Alright guys, Jazakallah khair for bearing with us, and Jazakallah khair to our amazing speakers. I just feel like there's not enough time like in the world to be able to go through everything in detail, but inshallah, you know, in the future, if this is something that you guys want, let us know. So even though we'll be concluding the event now, I just want to let you know that there's a way to reap the benefits for this event after it, and that is to please fill out the questionnaire if you guys haven't. I know I keep banging on about it, but it's genuinely the only way that we can continue to grow. I cannot emphasize how important it is for us to know your thoughts and your opinions, and your feedback is really, really valuable to us, and we're trying as much as we can to implement every single little thing. So if you haven't yet, please do fill out the pre-questionnaire, and inshallah in about an hour you're going to get the post-webinar questionnaire, inshallah. So just to take you through, we have two events left of Ramadan, which is really sad, but we have our virtual iftar, inshallah. This is amazing for people who might be spending Ramadan alone, especially under lockdown, or if you guys know of any reverts and stuff. It's going to be very fun, very light-hearted, inshallah. So please, if you haven't registered, please do. Again, you can just like keep us on in your headphones, keep us on in the background while you're preparing for iftar and stuff like that. So yeah, please do register, and even if it's like an issue of time difference, you can still reap the benefits, inshallah, and hopefully participate in the quiz and like the other fun light-hearted activity that we're going to do. If you register and attend, you also have the chance to win a Ramadan legacy planner. These are like amazing, and I know Ramadan is like gone, but you know, inshallah, this is a great way to prep for next year as well. There's so many like little things in there that you can implement throughout the year, and that's going to be with Brother Muhammad Malik, who's the co-founder of Ramadan Legacy. Our final event, which I'm really looking forward to, mashallah, is with Sheikh Jamal Abdul Nasir. He'll be talking about reflections on the Quran and well-being, and how to benefit from specific ayah for our mental health, and learning how to implement a Quranic lifestyle during Ramadan and thereafter. So if you haven't already, please register on inspirationminds.eventbrite.co.uk, inshallah. Furthermore, I just want to add, please don't forget to donate. Do not wait. You can donate today, inshallah. You know, whether that's £2 or £5 to both sisters. The link is in the chat box, so please do donate, inshallah. Whatever you can. There is no amount that is too small in the eyes of Allah, and inshallah, this amount will be heavy for you on the scales of Qiyamah, inshallah. So Jazakallah khair for your attendance. May Allah reward each and every one of you in abundance. And you know, my heart is very, very full right now to know that, you know, we've had such an amazing like event. I'm very, very grateful that we're able to be here to do this